I've been thinking a little bit about unhappiness before, during, and after relationships. Because most guys worry solely about the pain, the devastation afterwards. But it got me thinking, where is the loneliness and unhappiness the worst? Is it before you even get into a relationship, the longing, the FA guys, the people that can't even get into a relationship? They can never get something that other people seemingly are able to have. So there's an unhappiness in not having it. Then there's the unhappiness, pain, and the aloneness of being in a relationship, actually having one, and it not being with the right person or not being what you want, or the advertising doesn't match the product. Well, you can argue whether or not it's your own perception or if you're looking at things clearly, but I'm just looking at the unhappiness factor, the pain factor, the stress, the depressive factor. And then there's the one that we tend to always focus on, the residue, the devastation afterwards, the unhappiness afterwards, the loneliness afterwards, the regret, the abandonment, all of that afterwards. We tend to focus on that. But structurally, I was thinking about what's the real difference in terms of feeling alone and unhappy, not having one and always longing for that which you can never have. Unrequited love, some say, is worse than actually having the reality, because the reality never matches up to the fantasy, or which I've experienced a few times, and I'm sure many of you guys have, feeling alone with someone. And then there's the afterwards, the hamster wheel of, yeah, it was awful, but I miss the good times, which we easily do. We're trying to figure things out. But I was thinking about the assessment of the pain and unhappiness before, during, and after, and if there's really much of a difference in what it means. I mentioned it in a couple of previous videos where people say it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. And it really got me thinking, is the pain worth it? We throw around, is the juice worth the squeeze? The first thing that comes to mind that a lot of people might say is, well, you need to compare happiness and unhappiness. So you may need to go through pain to appreciate what happiness is. But one can make the analogy of, I can go to work out and go through a lot of pain, but objectively, there tends to be a reward afterwards, a beneficial reward, a happiness afterwards. So you go through the pain for something that's worthwhile. Whereas relationships are so stochastic and unpredictable. All you know that most of them are a roller coaster and a drama and things left unsaid and trying to read each other's minds and changing how you feel, and just a uneasy, uncalibrated existence where you hope that tomorrow will be as stable as today. Whereas the stress and pain and the frustration you might go through dieting and working out, you know that it will be worth it. It's just a matter of sticking through it, and you know that driving through it will yield rewards. This is the mental anxiety of most relationships, the incompatibility generally of men and women, the wanting each other biologically, not being able to communicate, or really not communicating because there's not much there that's in common, and playing the game as long as possible until it just falls apart. Men and women have almost nothing in common, but historically, social and civil laws helped keep us in line and calibrate us to a workable way of relating. It helped us stay together better and longer, especially when it came to kids. So in terms of how relationships out there are the wild, wild west now, whereas when the wild, wild west actually existed, relationships were one of the few things that you could count on to a certain degree. It's really flipped on its head. When you look at relationships as a product, in the past, they tended to be a lifelong product. These days, it's a product that gets turned over for new models and new experiences and never settling and living life It doesn't bode well for having kids, though. It doesn't bode well for trust over the long term with anybody. About the only thing you can kind of trust these days is just friendship. And I would contend, if that's about the only model you can trust today, you're better off just having a friend you have sex with, because the old model just doesn't plug in today's society. Here's an analogy. If most people who worked out and kept fit, no matter the benefits of working out and keeping fit, but there was a direct correlation between working out and keeping fit and a high degree of getting cancer from that, no matter the benefits, most people will just say, you know what, on balance, I'm not going to work out and keep fit because there's just too high a risk of getting cancer. So you can't really blame people for being very, very reluctant and cautious. Crimson in my subs said, I truly loved and lost. It's not better. I was much happier, positive, and optimistic an individual before that. And I allowed myself to fall in love, not by accident, but by decision. I regret it even 12 years after it's over. This is the thing. The death of relationships for men, I think, resemble deaths. They're not just a frustrating, irritating drama that I sort of, when I talk to women, that's how I glean that they feel about them. Oh, the asshole, he did this, men can't be trusted, I'm irritated, he wasted my time. Ours is like a death. It takes men a lot longer to fall in love again because the way we love is a very honourable and deep one. It's, I think, analogous to when men go to war. We love our fellow man. There's a bond we get with men in that very deep trust where our lives are on the line and we're risking it all. And then we watch our brothers die. No matter how much we love that environment and how much we love men and our relationships in that environment, we don't want to go back to war. It's a real death. And similarly, I think men are connected to a similar feeling when they deeply fall in love with a woman, with the war of the ups and downs and trying to get along. And finally, when it dies, this is the existential fear that men have, where women don't. They don't experience that warlike, honourable bond where men die for each other, the thing you can give the most of, your entire existence in life. With women, they can monkey branch to the next person. It's a game of snakes and ladders reproduction. And I'm not blaming women for it, but it's a very different mindset. And the residue of pain that's left afterwards is very different between men and women. So, don't overthink things. Just get into a relationship. If you love and lose, no big deal. I think that's a sentiment that women feel more comfortable with than men, honestly speaking. And another subscriber replied to that comment, Supreme Canon said, if the cost of a few years ended with the relationship ending, it would still be very costly. But when is that ever the case? That's the thing. For men, especially psychologically, the cost of a relationship during that time, the waste of time, resources, and everything is bad enough. But it drags behind you like a mental anchor. Afterwards, it takes men years to fall in love again, like they did. He continues, steak and eggs is a day's work for a hen and a lifetime commitment for a steer. Their analogies aren't even in the same solar system. That is a brilliant quote. It's not much effort for a hen to give you eggs, but if you want steak, the steer takes a lot longer and he gives up a lot more to give you that. So I was just pondering, men go to such extremes when they love, fight, die. It needs to mean something. That's why the honor and trust of men means something. And similarly, when we go into that same honor, trust, and love with a woman in a similar structural way, there's a real difference with how it feels afterwards for a man, because it is like a death. It's not just a breakup. It's not just it didn't work out. You lose someone you loved and you cared about. You can lose a living representation of that that's a reminder for the rest of your life in the way of children that you can't see, that you're still paying for, that you're reminded by every time in your bank account. It is an awful psychological place to be. And I don't think many women realize the psychological differences of that kind of death between the sexes. And for all of you who get triggered about my views on women and relationships and have differing views, fine. But this isn't about women. This is about me. This is about me navigating my desires and making the best decisions I can. So let me know your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Was it better to have loved and lost, to have loved someone, to have had kids with that someone that you no longer love? If you had your time over again, despite loving your kids, would you have not done it? I've spoken to many men where they love their kids, but they wish they never had them with this person. They wish they'd never met that person. It's a really cruel psychological thing to think that I never would have had this child I loved without meeting this person I no longer do. If you had your time over again, would you have avoided all those good times because what you're left with now isn't worth it? Anyway, I was just thinking about that. What you're left with, the kind of death a man feels before a woman, wanting her, the death he feels when he's with her, and the death he feels afterwards. And how I've noticed it's very different. You just need to listen to women talk openly and freely about their relationships and how they think about them in retrospect. And you think about men talking about it in a heartfelt way as well. It's very, very different. It comes across as a real death to men. It does not for women. Anyway, I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye. Like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon and select all to be notified when I release new content. And please share. Feel free to link my videos around on your social media or anywhere you feel appropriate, or by word of mouth. The more you guys can support my channel, the more content I can bring out. Or if you feel generous enough to support me directly through donating via Patreon or PayPal, links are below for that too. Thank you so much to all of you who have and continue to. You guys are fantastic. I really appreciate it. Cheers.